DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. We went and made a whole system out of this. We put the whole thing into a framework, a process that anybody can follow. We have a hardcover book on the subject. We have the university as open enrollment right now. You're listening to the daily masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is putting people into their right roles, putting people in the places that they should be, in the space that makes the most sense for them, where they truly want to be, not need to be, but want to be, and hopefully need to be at the same time. This concept, what I'm going to share with you here today, is the key for long-term success of any team. I'm going to repeat what I just said. I want to make sure you heard me. This concept that I'm going to share today is the key for the long-term success of any team. Everyone being in a role that fits them perfectly. You want your team to be great, this is what you need. Everybody has to be in a role that makes the most sense for them. Not only on your end, being that you need each person in a certain role on the team, but also how they feel about the role. When you see successful teams break up, they seem to be doing well, but then people just, for whatever reason, leave that team. Let me tell you why that happens. There's only one reason it happens. It's because some people no longer want to be in the same role that they were in. With winning teams, if a team is successful and then people start leaving the team, it's usually people wanting more. Maybe that means more money, maybe more attention, maybe they want more power, more control, they want more credit for the success of the team. For example, you look at the Los Angeles Lakers when they had Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, they were a successful team. That whole team, but Kobe and Shaq were, of course, the main characters on that team. The reason that team broke up is because the main guys, Kobe and Shaq, both of them wanted a little bit more. Shaq wanted more money, and the Lakers didn't want to give it to him at that point in his career. He had to go get it elsewhere. Kobe Bryant wanted more power, control, and credit, because at that point, people were saying, well, Kobe is obviously a great player, but we all know that Shaq's the best player on the team. Shaq's the reason they're winning championships. Kobe really didn't like that. He was at a point in his career, and he admitted this himself. He was at a point in his career where he wanted to see what it would feel like to be the main guy and be clearly the main guy on the team, and that's exactly what he got. Shaq got his money in Miami. That's where he got traded to. Kobe got to be the man in Los Angeles. They both got what they wanted, but at the same time, the teams broke up. That team that the Lakers have been on, they broke up. Jay-Z and Dame Dash, two guys that I've talked about in Virtual Mentors episodes individually. They started a company called Rockefeller in the mid-90s, and that company was one of the dominant companies in the hip-hop industry, not just music, but just hip-hop, the whole hip-hop genre, culture for many years. But that business ended up breaking up. Why'd they break up? Because it seemed like some people wanted a little bit more attention. If you ask Jay-Z, it was, at least according to what he was saying in his music, and he said this in an article that he wrote that got published in a magazine back at the time when the Rockefeller company broke up. He was saying, look, my business partners who I started the company with, it was those two guys, Jay-Z, Dame Dash, and another guy. They started to want a little bit more. They wanted more glow. They wanted more attention. They didn't like being in the background so much. They wanted to be more in the foreground, and I didn't want to deal with that anymore. So that's how we ended up breaking up. But if you ask Dame and Dash, he says, well, Jay-Z just wanted more money. All right, instead of having to take the money that Rockefeller was making and split it amongst three owners of the company, which is how the company started, Jay-Z just wanted to take all the money and keep it for himself. And that's why he did it. So you might get different stories from different people as to why breakups occurred. But every time it's because people want more, especially if the team is successful, it's because people want more. More money, more attention, more power, more control, more credit. People get tired of playing roles. And if you see a failing team break up, well, maybe it's because the team just wasn't successful. Maybe that's the reason they break up. Maybe it's because they don't have good enough players anyway. So they need to be changing. They need to be changing something somehow, some way, one way or another anyhow. So really, we're talking about teams that are successful. And I hope that you're listening to this because you're looking for ways to put together a successful team, or how you can become part of a team that is already successful, or how you can form a team that is successful. And what you need to understand is what we're talking about here today as we get into point number one. The topic, once again, is putting people in their right roles where they truly want to be. I'll give you another example. I'll give you an example of this actually working, and working in a way that, at least as of this recording, has continued to work in a positive way. We can't quite see it right now, but you'll get it when I get into it. There's a basketball team called the Golden State Warriors. Over the last 5+ years in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors, when they have been healthy and fully formed, have been, I would say, consistently over the last 5+ years, the best team overall in basketball. And they have 3 guys that have been mainstays of the whole run. Now, they had Kevin Durant came in there for a little cameo of a couple years, but through the whole thing, it's been 3 guys that have always been there: Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Now, the reason that the Golden State Warriors have been so good, one reason is these guys are very talented. Another reason is these guys have a high level of skill in basketball. Another reason is each of their skills, these 3 guys that I'm talking about, Steph, Curry, and Klay, and Draymond, their abilities complement each other. They are all in their right roles. And here's another reason. Here's the key reason right here. Each one of these guys is in the position that best suits him, and none of them is angling or pining for more. If you look at this team, I would say Stephen Curry is the clear star. He's the golden child of this group. Even when Kevin Durant was on the Golden State Warriors, everybody, of course, knows that Kevin Durant's a great player, probably in a vacuum better than Stephen Curry. But on this team, the Golden State Warriors, Stephen Curry is the guy. All right, he is the franchise player of the Golden State Warriors. And here's the thing. Klay Thompson knows that Stephen Curry is the franchise player. Draymond Green knows that Stephen Curry is the franchise player. Stephen Curry knows he's the franchise player. And all 3 of them are okay with Stephen Curry being the golden child, the one who gets the most attention. He has the most fans coming to the game with his jersey on. He is the one that most young kids want to look up to and be like. Even though it's a team sport, he's getting the majority of the attention, and they're okay with that. His co-stars are okay with him being the main star. And this is a huge point, because look at what I just told you about the Los Angeles Lakers. The reason that team broke up when Kobe and Shaq both had plenty of years still in them. Shaquille O'Neal won a championship 2 years later in Miami. He was an all-star a year and even 2 years after that. And Kobe Bryant won a championship after the Lakers broke. He won a championship 6-7 years later. So both of these guys had plenty of basketball still in them, but they couldn't keep working together because they weren't okay with not getting the amount of more that each of them wanted. But with the Golden State Warriors, the reason this team has been so good, in addition to the fact that they're actually good at basketball, is that the co-stars are okay with being co-stars. And what happens a lot of times in these situations is the co-star eventually says, well, look, I'm good too. I want more attention. I want more money. I want to know what it feels like to be the main guy. All right, he's the main guy here. I get it. Okay, let me go somewhere else so I can be the main guy and I can see what that feels like. Klay Thompson doesn't seem, at least as of this recording, he doesn't seem to have that challenge. Draymond Green, as of this recording, doesn't seem to have that challenge with Stephen Curry being the main guy. And everybody's playing their role. Steph Curry's the guy who's the point guard. He's dribbling the ball. He probably dribbles the ball around the most, gets to take the most ridiculous shots. Klay Thompson's the spot-up shooter. Doesn't he have to dribble the ball that much? He's the defensive stopper. He takes on the tougher defensive assignments, so Steph Curry doesn't have to do it. Draymond Green's like the Swiss Army knife, who doesn't really score a ton of points. He kind of fills up the stat sheets. He's been mostly a defensive anchor for this team, and he's a guy who kind of gives up his body and gives up the stats in order to do the little things to help a team win, like the glue guy, what they call it in basketball. And each one of these guys is in a role that is perfectly suited for their skill set. If you were to make Draymond Green the main guy on the team like Steph Curry is, that team probably wouldn't be too good because that's not Draymond's main role. If you were to make Klay Thompson the glue guy who has to do everything on defense the way Draymond does, it probably wouldn't work for him. If you had Steph Curry be the next to the guy, the number 2 guy on the team, that's not the key role for Steph Curry. The best role for Steph Curry is to be the main guy the way that he is, but he also needs a Klay Thompson next to him, and he needs a Draymond Green behind him. Draymond needs a Steph Curry and Klay needs a Steph Curry and a Draymond. Each one of them fits perfectly with the other, and that's why that team has been so great. Again, in addition to the fact that they are good at basketball. It's them all being in the right role for themselves. When the Chicago Bulls were winning championships in the mid and late, and all through the 90s, actually, as a matter of fact, but the late 90s team, everyone was in their perfect role. Michael Jordan was the main guy. Everybody knew this. Everybody on the team knew it. Everybody was okay with the fact that Michael Jordan got the most money. He got the most attention. He was the main reason most of the fans came to the game. And everybody was all right with that. Nobody on the team was like, man, I wish I was getting as much attention as Michael Jordan. No, I should be making as much money as Mike. They didn't have that problem on that team because everybody else was in the role they needed to be in. Steve Kerr, who happens to be the coach of these Golden State Warriors, at least as of this recording, he was a role player on that Bulls team. He was all right with being a role player on that team. Dennis Rodman was a role player. His role was to play defense, he was kind of like a little bit of a sideshow for the fans. A lot of people came to the games just to see what Dennis Rodman was going to do, what color his hair was going to be. But his thing was grab rebounds, play very good defense. You might score a couple points in the game. You might not score at all. Dennis Rodman was okay with that. Whereas a lot of basketball players base their worth, their self-worth as a player on how many points they had. Dennis Rodman didn't care. Scottie Pippen was the number 2 guy on that team. Everybody knew it. He was not getting paid as much as Michael Jordan. Everybody knew that. He was probably very underpaid at the time based on other players in the league who were not of his caliber. And he was kind of disgruntled about that at the end, but he never let it leak into what they were doing with the team. And part of that was the leadership of a guy like a Michael Jordan and a coach like a Phil Jackson. And that team worked perfectly because everyone was in their proper role and everyone was happy and content with the role that they had. That's why that team was great. That's why the Warriors team is great. Any great team that you know of that's out there, everybody's in their perfect role. Look at that team and look. Everybody's in a role that they're happy with. They're happy with not being the main person. If you run a business and you have people working for you, and obviously, let's just say, maybe not obviously, but whatever the situation happens to be, if you're the main person, you're the person in charge, you're the boss, and you have other people working for you who they eventually want to be a boss themselves. They want to be the one in charge. They want to run their own operation. All right, that team is probably not going to do as good as it possibly could do if you have people in a role that is not the role they ultimately want to be in. And eventually somebody's going to leave that team because they're going to want to go do their thing in a place where they can do the thing that they actually want to do. This is what makes teams great, and this is also what makes teams fall apart. In episode number 1173, what was the topic? Everyone is a role player. What do I mean by that? When I say Steph Curry and Michael Jordan were the main guys on their teams, and they were/are, that's still a role. Being the main guy is a role. Scoring all the points is a role because if you don't do that role of scoring all those points, your team's probably not going to win. If Steph Curry doesn't make those 3-pointers, the Warriors don't win championships. If Michael Jordan doesn't make big shots at the end of games, the Bulls aren't as successful as they are. So that is still a role. Being the star is a role. Being a bench guy is a role. Being a supporting member, cast member, that is a role as well. So being a role player in life does not mean you are a lesser player. Being a role player on a sports team or a role player in a business doesn't mean you're a lesser player. The front desk person at a business. If I walk into a business and the first person I encounter is the front desk person and they're an asshole and they have a negative attitude, that's going to ruin my whole experience of dealing with that business, and I probably am not going to come back. Even though that front desk person might be the lowest paid individual working there. So is that role lesser? I would say no, because that role frames the entire experience every customer who walks into that business has. So that role matters a whole lot, because if that role is not done right, then nobody else who might be getting paid more or their role may be quote unquote more important, they don't get to do their thing. So this role matters a whole lot. So everybody has a role to play. When everyone's in their right role, comfortable in that role and fulfilling that role, the team is successful. Unfortunately though, what happens is too many teams have bad fits, meaning you have people in roles that they are not skill equipped for. They don't have the skills, or maybe they are too skilled for that role, which can lead to bad culture fits. Meaning people sometimes just don't fit with the energy of an organization, or because they're asked to do more than they're capable of doing or less than they actually think they could do, they don't feel as fulfilled as they could be in that role, and then cracks start to show after some time. And then these teams end up breaking up. Again, the LA Lakers, they won 3 championships, could have won a lot more than that, but there was some skill and culture bad fits. Again, Kobe thought he was better than the role that he had. And that matters. All right, that is a bad skill fit when somebody on the team feels like they can do a lot more than what you're asking them to do. Eventually, they may just push to get the hell out of there so they can do what they want to do. And those cracks will start to show, some sooner, some later. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is putting people in their right roles, which is where they truly want to be. Number 2, there's only but so long you can hold the balance of asking other people to be more or less than their natural selves. It is a truth of human nature that no human being can perform for an extended period of time much greater or lesser than how he sees himself. So if someone sees themselves as a level 70 individual and they're performing at a level 75 right now, it's only a matter of time before they go back down to a 70. And they're performing at a 60, it's only a matter of time before they raise their game up to a 70. If that's the way they actually see themselves. However a person sees himself, there's only so long he can pretend to be something else before he will naturally go back to who he actually is. Eventually, a person will either, if they're not in the right role for themselves, a lesser or a greater role, they will eventually want to do more and expand so they can show everything they think they can do, or they will crumble under the burden of having to do more than their natural capacity, and you're going to have problems that way. Either way, you're going to have problems. Most human beings over time will regress to the mean of their natural selves, whatever that happens to be, whatever that natural level is for them. Now, your natural level can change based on you working on your game and doing the right type of work on your game. But whatever that natural level is, that is where people gravitate, including me, including you. Now, again, those levels can raise, as I said, but no human being will perform too high or too low from where they see themselves. And that change that can occur, it must be intentional. So that change does not happen just because you told somebody, hey, you need to step your game up. You tell somebody, hey, you need to, do a little bit more. Or, hey, you're doing too much, you need to do a little bit less. That does not work. All right, people don't change because they get told that they need to change. Someone changes because they choose to change. Now, you telling somebody to change or telling them that they need to change may lead them to choosing to change, but they only change because they chose to. You cannot make another person change. I don't care what you say, what you do. You can fire them, beat them up, threaten them, intimidate them, ridicule them. The only way anyone changes in life, any human being, is because they choose to. Now, all those other things could lead to the choice. Ridicule, threaten to losing their job, yelling at them every single day, ignoring them. All those things could lead to them making the choice to change, but understand that it is always their choice. The only thing you can do is push someone towards making a choice. But until or unless they make a choice, no human being is going to change. So if you find you have people in your organization or in your teams who are not quite the right fit, either you're asking them to do too much, or you're asking them to do too little, or they're not quite doing enough, or they're doing a little bit too much, or however you see it, the only way that's going to change is if you either A, change their role so that it does fit exactly who they are, or B, they choose to change to get closer to fitting the role that you want them to fit. But they have to make that choice, or you can make the adjustment around them. So you can either adjust to them, or they can adjust to you, or what happens most of the time, neither makes any adjustment, and eventually that team is going to fall apart. Now, you can look at your own experiences with groups, and you can probably quickly and easily diagnose which has happened in your past. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is putting people in their right roles, and the right role for everybody is a role that they truly want to be in. Not need to be, but want to be in. Point number 3. Here's the question then. What is your ideal role? When and where have you been at your best? What was it about that environment or those environments when you were at your best that brought it out of you? What made those environments so good for you? What elements were in place? Were there certain people that you were dealing with? Was it because of the job that you were asked to do? Was it the geographical location? Was it the money you were making? Was it the outcomes that you were providing? Was it the challenge that you were up against? And where are you now? If this is not your ideal role, where in your life do you feel like maybe you're doing too much? Where do you feel like you are not doing enough? Where do you feel like you're being asked to do too much, or you're not being asked to do enough based on the abilities that you have? And again, the ask doesn't have to be coming from a boss or somebody telling you what to do. The ask could be coming from you. It could just be the way you have things set up in your own life. You're not really getting to extend yourself and do as good as you could do just based on the way you have set things up for yourself. Maybe that's the problem. If you're not in your ideal role right now, and you will probably know if you are or you're not, what's missing? Do you want to do more? Do you want to do less? Do you want to do something completely different? Do you have the right amount of the wrong thing or the wrong amount of the right thing? Are you associating with the right individuals? Those individuals could be the people that you work with. It could be the people that you work for. It could be the people that you serve. It could be the customers that you have. It could be the audience that you built. Are you associating with the right people based on your ideal role? Understanding on a great team, the star has the want to be the star. Golden State Warriors work the way that they do because Steph Curry wants to be in the role that he's in. All right, if he didn't want to be the star, that team wouldn't be as good as they are. Michael Jordan didn't want to be the star, the Bulls would not be the Bulls. If Dennis Rodman didn't want to be the rebounding, eccentric guy, that team wouldn't have worked the way that it did. Everybody has to want the role that they have. The assistant has to want to be an assistant. All right, the assistant coach got to want to be an assistant coach. Now, they can have aspirations on the head coach, but this year, while you're on this team, be the damn assistant coach because that's the role that you have. All right, the number 2 guy got to want to be the number 2 guy. And when number 2 guy decides that that's enough of that, all right, then things fall apart. Then you get the Kobe Shaq situation with the Lakers. Everyone has to embrace where they are and not be focused on being somewhere else. That's the only way a team can be great. So even though Kobe, after the season, said, all right, I want to be the guy and not be with Shaq anymore, during the season, Kobe was still doing his thing the way he was supposed to, and that's how they won those championships. Even though Scottie Pippen was upset that he wasn't getting paid the way he wanted to be paid, during the season, he did his role, and that's how the Bulls kept winning all those championships, even though Scottie Pippen was looking for that contract. So you can have your idea of wanting to expand and go further or do less or change somehow, some way. But when you're at work doing your thing, you got to be at work doing your thing. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody has to embrace where they are, not be looking around at somewhere else. Any team that has members with wandering eyes, meaning they're looking at anything other than the task at hand, that team will not be at its best. That team will fall apart. Now, again, your eyes can wander when the task is done. All right, the season's over. Okay, you decide you want to be a free agent and go sign with somebody else, cool. As long as you do your job during the season, it's cool. Because if you don't do your job during the season, who's going to want to sign you anyway? All right, they just watched you play. You didn't do nothing. So any team, whatever that team is, as long as the job is being done, as long as everybody's on task with whatever that job is, you need to make sure everybody on that team understands, look, when this is over, everybody can go their separate ways and do what they got to do and get what you want to get for yourselves. But right now, we all got to give our best to the team because not only is that going to serve the group, but it's also going to serve each one of us individually because we're all creating success for ourselves. Any team whose members can't all get on the same page because people are so disgruntled or just ill-fitting with their role that they can't even focus on the job right now, the team won't go far, no matter how talented. Let's recap today's class, which is putting people in their right roles, which is the role where they truly actually want to be. Where do they fit? This is the key for the long-term success of any team, everybody being in a role that fits them perfectly. Point number 1, Golden State Warriors are as great as they are because Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green all want to be in the exact roles that they have, and each one of them need to be in that role for that team to be great. If either one of them, any one of them, changes how they see their role and the way they're looking at what they're doing, that team is not going to keep working the way that it is. The Chicago Bulls, same thing. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman, even the coach, Phil Jackson, Steve Kerr. Everybody had to be in the right role. That's why that team was successful. In episode number 1173, I told you everyone is a role player. A role player does not mean a lesser player. It means everyone, even the stars, have a role to play. And when everyone's in their right role, the team is successful. Unfortunately, too many teams have bad fits, bad skill fit, bad culture fit, and that's when the cracks start to show. Point number 2, only but so long that you can hold the balance of asking people to be more or less than what is their natural form. Eventually, people will either want to do more or they'll crumble under the burden of having to do too much. Most people over time will always regress to the mean of their natural selves and their natural levels. No human being can perform for an extended period of time too high or above or too low below how they see themselves. If they change to expand or to make themselves smaller for whatever reason, it's only because of their choice, not because you told them to do it. Number 3, what is your ideal role? Think about when you've been at your best and ask yourself what elements of that environment brought that out of you. And if you are not in your ideal role right now, where do you feel like maybe you're doing too much, you're doing too little, maybe the right amount of the wrong thing, wrong amount of the right thing, you're being associated with the wrong people? On a great team, everybody has to want the space that they're in. Everybody has to embrace it, not be looking around at somewhere else. And any team that has members with wandering eyes, that team is close to falling apart. If you're ready to build a team, you got to start by being the person that you are and actually being really clear on exactly who that person is or who you need to become. In order to do that, you should join us at Work on Your Game University so we can take you through the 9-part Work on Your Game process, which follows the overall Work on Your Game system, which we have codified so you can follow this step by step. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be an athlete. Anyone who has game and you want to take it further, you believe there's more that you can achieve and more that you can be in life as a person, thusly more you can achieve, thusly more you will have, join us by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all